Hare Krishna, Prabhu's Matais. Thank you very much for joining and keeping the appointment with Krishna today. So let us start with Jaya Radha Madhav. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीर वनचारी यमुना तीर वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 रामा हरे रामा राम रामा हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 रामा राम रामा हरे हरे जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। हरिनाम संकीर्तन करी जाए। जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुरमाई की जय। राधा महादेव की जय। नरसिंह भगवान की जय। पंच तत्व की जय। षड गोस्वामी की जय। प्रभुपाद की जय। गुरुदेव की जनता की। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। So Hare Krishna Prabhu's Mataji's. So today we'll be discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto, 30th chapter. Actually, it has got 34 verses. So last week, I think Prabhuji would have taken up to the half 50% of that, half of that. So up to maybe 16. So 17 to 34, which are the verses which I will be discussing. Try to give full justice, maybe also my capacity, because 1 hour is not enough for discussing 17 verses, but we will take the important ones. Okay. But let us decide. The first verse is a very important verse. Kapilo Vacha Tasya Jano Nunam Nayam Vedor Vikramam Kalyamanopi Balino Vayoriva Ghanavalihi. Kapilo Vacha Tasya Jano Nunam Nayam Vedor Vikramam Kalyamanopi Balino Vayoriva Ghanavalihi. Synonyms. Kapila Vacha, Lord Kapila said, Tasya etasya, of this very time factor. Janaha, person, Nunam, certainly. Na, not, I am this. Veda, knows. Uru Vikramam, the great strength. Kalyamanaha, being carried off. Api, although. Barinaha, powerful. Vayohu, of the wind. Eva, like Ghana, of clouds. Avalihi, a mass. Translation purpose. Please hear the translation purport. The personality of God is said, as a mass of clouds does not know the powerful influence of the wind. A person engaged in material consciousness does not know the powerful strength of the time factor by which he is being carried. The great politician Pandita named Chanakya said that even one moment of time cannot be returned even if one is prepared to pay millions of dollars. One cannot calculate the amount of loss there is in wasting valuable time. Either materially or spiritually, one should be very alert in utilizing the time which he has at his disposal. The conditioned soul lives in a particular body for a fixed measurement of time. And it is recommended in the scriptures that within that small measurement of time, one has to finish Krishna consciousness and thus gain release from the influence of the time factor. But unfortunately, those who are not in Krishna consciousness are carried away by the strong power of time without their knowledge, as clouds are carried by the wind. Jai Shri Prabhupada's transcendental purport ki jai. Om Gyantamara Andasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advait Gadadhar Shivasadi Gauravakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanta Prabhishya Mama Shimam Prasuptam Sanjeevayati Krishakidhar Sadamna Anyam Chahasta Charana Shranatugadin Rana Namo Bhagavate Varshantabhyam Mukam Kadoti Vachana Pangam Nagati Virindat Kripatam Namo Vishtabhada Krishna Krishna Bhagavate Mahashasam Prani Namo Vishtabhada Krishna Krishna Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu. So Hare Krishna, welcome all of you Prabhuji Mataji. Thank you very much for your eagerness to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So just now I read that first verse, and you might have heard about the purport, what is a very important factor of the time factor, right? So what happens many times, sorry, see, many times people, they ask, that as we all belong to Krishna, and Krishna is the wealthiest person in the whole creation, how can he put his children in so many miseries, such as poverty, disease in this world? So there are very poor and rich persons in this world. The so-called poverty or richness is not the real thing. See, if actually this is our ignorance and not the real truth. See, as one of the six opulence, Krishna is the wealthiest person in the whole creation. So how can Krishna's children be so poor? We forget that we are very, very rich like the father. So Srila Prabhupada proves this point, right? So we have so much time at our disposal and we do not understand its value. See, a person who is in his deathbed, he knows the cost of even a split of a second. So Srila Prabhupada, he says that one of his friend wanted to live more to complete the incomplete project, and was ready to pay any amount to the doctor. We many times see relatives of the sick, pleading to the doctors, saying, take all our wealth, but save our dear one. The person who is drowning in water needs only seconds time to breathe, right? And get him saved. So how can we say that we are poor? As Krishna has given us so much time. If we calculate the cost of even one day in terms of money, which rich people are ready to pay, right? It cannot even be calculated. We waste this priceless time on useless things. So time used on material thing is wasted, as it is given in Bhagavatam 128. Dharma swanishtita pumsam vishwaksena kathasuyah notpadayed yadiratim shramaeva hi kevalam. So the occupational activities a man performs according to his own position are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality. See, provoke, that word is very beautiful. Unless it doesn't provoke attraction to the Lord, that is more important. So whatever time we spend, and it cannot see, and it cannot create love if we spend whatever time we spend, right? And if it cannot create the love for Krishna, it is sheer waste of time. Sharma eva hi kevalam, it is given there. So Krishna is so kind that all of us are awarded by millions of dollars. We are already given millions of dollars, but we do not realize it until we calculate the value of all the free items given by Krishna to all of us. See, a person, he will be ready to exchange his entire money for an eye or a liver or kidney or any organ he does not have or he has lost. So if we count the total sum of each of our organ provided by Krishna without any charge, we can understand his causeless mercy. See, we get free supply of pranavayu, air. We cannot live even for a minute without this. See, the cost of pranavayu is known to a person who is stuck in a room filled with smoke and he needs fresh air to survive, or a person drowning in water. See, Krishna does not charge any tax or fee for all the free air or water supply, right? So we can see that we are not poor, but we are actually miser and do not want to use our riches for the real owner of all the riches. So many people ask, why does Krishna call us Muda or Alpa Medasam in Bhagavad Gita? The reason is very clear. We are very thankless and do not make the best use of all the riches provided to us by Krishna. The real intelligence is in making use of our time. Our senses and all our possessions should be used in the service of the Lord, who is the real owner of all our possessions. This will be the best use. So in this canto, third canto, 30th chapter, 30th chapter which we are discussing, right? Lord Kapil Deva describes the adverse effects of fruitive activities. That is the title. Adverse effects of the fruitive activities in this middle world. There are really wonderful lessons for us to meditate. So while going through this chapter, no, description of adverse affected fruitive activities, it caught my attention very much because it was revealing to me in some parts of our life which we do not care much to think about. You know what is that? Old age. So description of the old age and its really related difficulties in this chapter is absolutely astounding. More so with the inconceivable purpose of Srila Prabhupada. See, old age is one of the most unavoidable things in our life, but it rarely troubles our thoughts when we are young and healthy. So when we are active in our young age, even up to our 40s or 50s, we are mostly productive. We earn and maintain families, right? And are so not so much dependent on others for doing our basic activities. So this is the time we will be liked and welcomed by our family, friends, and society. We might be under the impression that they respect our qualifications, name, fame, etc. Right? But in reality, they love and respect us because they can get more from us than giving us. As soon as we attain old age, it turns the other way around. Because in old age, we become so invalid that we are dependent on others for even our basic activities. And on the other hand, we cannot be of any help to others around us. So we really become a botheration for all of them. That's why in this chapter, 13th verse, in this 3:30:13, in a sequence of 6 verses, right, from 30:13 or so, where that word he says, seeing him unable to support them, his wife and others do not treat him with the same respect as before. Even as miserly farmers do not accord the same treatment to their old and worn out oxen. See, it is really a pathetic and painful situation. No? They're the same persons for whom he had spent every drop of his blood in his life. Neglect him as soon as he becomes a burden. So Prabhupada very wonderfully, he says in his purport, when an attached person in family life becomes old and is unable to earn, he is no longer liked by his wife, sons, daughters, and other kinsmen. And he is consequently neglected, what to speak of not being given respect. See, why my Guru Maharaj gave a very deep realization. He said, we should leave our home when everyone questions us, why are you going? Why you are going? Otherwise, very soon the time will come when the same people will ask you, when are you going? What are we supposed to do after we leave our home? Srila Prabhupada gives the one and only wonderful answer in his purport. He says, it is judicious, therefore, to give up family attachment before one attains old age and take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He says how one should employ himself in the Lord's service so that the Supreme Lord can take charge of him and he will not be neglected by his so-called kinsmen. The sooner we realize these facts, right, better prepared we will be for our unavoidable exit. See, going through old age is not very easy. It has got so many physical, mental, psychological, emotional issues. So Srimad Bhagavatam very clearly depicts the picture of what we go through in old age in the verses from 13 to 17. 13, 14, 15, 16, 5 verses. See, in the 14th verse, he says, Prabhupada, in the purport, not only in the present age, but from time immemorial, no one has liked an old man who is unable to earn in the family. Even in the modern age, in some communities or states, old men are given poison so that they will die as soon as possible. Prabhupada further says in the purport, in some cannibalistic communities, the old grandfather is sportingly killed and a feast is held in which his body is eaten. See, example is given that a farmer does not like an old bull who has ceased to work. And again, Prabhupada further continues. It's a very wonderful purport. Similarly, when an attached person in family life becomes old and is unable to earn, he is no longer liked by his wife, sons, daughters, and other kinsmen, and is consequently neglected. What to speak of not being given respect. So Prabhupada says, as I just now read out the same thing again, it is judicious, therefore, to give up family attachment before one attains old age and take the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should employ himself in the Lord's service so that the Supreme Lord can take charge of him and he will not be neglected by his so-called kinsmen. See, even when sometimes old people are blessed with good health and financial and emotional security, we see that they complain that they are feeling very much bored and do not know how to pass the time. Even in such cases, when in old age, they have everything. Because it's all uselessly spent before the idiot box, or speaking or talking mundane gossip, or quarreling, or reading some newspapers, literature, so many things. So long lives are not necessarily happy lives. Long lives are not necessarily happy lives. We see this most beautiful verse spoken by Shukadeva Goswami in Bhagavatam 2, 1, 12, where he says, what is the value of a prolonged life which is wasted, inexperienced by years in this world? Better a moment of full consciousness because that gives one a start in searching after the supreme interest. So Shukadeva Goswami goes on to give the example of the saintly king Khatwanga, who after being informed that the duration of his life would be only a moment more, at once freed himself from all material activities and took shelter of the supreme safety, the personality of Godhead. But this also does not mean that long life is always a curse. That is also not the right conclusion. Long life is not a curse also. See what happens. There are the examples. To understand how a long life can be a blessing, we should see the examples of Swayambhu Manu, Uddhava, right? So we can go through the Bhagavatam, you know. That is also, so that is because they are totally surrendered to the Lord. So that's why Kapila Muni from 14 to 17 verses, no? Again, further, Prabhupada says in this purports, the foolish family man does not become averse to family life, although he is maintained by those whom he once maintained. Deformed by the influence of old age, he prepares himself to meet ultimate death. Now, another very powerful purport he says, thus he remains at home just like a pet dog and he eats whatever is so negligently given to him. Afflicted with many illnesses such as dyspepsia and loss of appetite, he eats only very small morsels of food and he becomes an invalid who cannot work anymore. And further he says, in that disease condition, one's eyes bulge due to the pressure of air from within and his glands become congested with mucus. He has difficulty breathing. And upon exhaling and inhaling, he produces a sound like gurra, gurra, rattling within the throat. So, see, it is always good to know what is in store for us and be prepared for it. Srimad Bhagavatam reveals the naked truth to us. And meditating on the transcendental instructions of the great Shastra, Bhagavatam, and relishing devotional service by being fully dependent on Krishna is only escape route out of the great calamities of old age, disease, and death. See, we may not have a Mahatma like Vidura when we near our death, as he gave instructions to Dhritarashtra, right? But we have these eternal transcendental instructions through Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, and also the transcendental instructions and mercy of Guru, Prabhupada, and Krishna eternally with us. Yes, because it is there in testing situations of our life. It is always there. So let us pray to our Guru, Prabhupada, and Krishna, no, that they may bestow upon us the transcendental instructions. And let us give us the determination to follow them at all times, especially in our last moments. See, every single literature in this world is filled with nonsensical matter that has no use for the real purpose of our life. By reading those literatures, what do we, what is the benefit? We not only waste our time, but also keep ourselves unprepared to face the reality, which is death. People in general do not want to think about death. Why? Because they are afraid of the very thought of it. Every advertisement, TV programs, entertainment, sports, dance, they're all aimed at hammering upon our heads. You are this body, enjoy as much as you can. Because their main aim is to make us forget about our last days so that their business will go on. So only in the transcendental scripture like Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, we can see the elaborate discussion of such topics like old age and death. We don't find it anywhere else. So when people lead a life devoid of devotional service, they have to undergo severe pains, both mentally and physically in their last days. That's why this verses now from 13 to 18, Lord Kamala gives a vivid description of this. In the 15th verse, he says, just now we saw that he remains at home just like a pet dog, eats whatever is negligently given to him. So Prabhupada, in the he uses very strong words in his purpose, as powerful as thunderbolt. Here he says, before meeting death, one is sure to become a diseased invalid. And when he is neglected by his family members, his life becomes less than a dog's because he's put into so many miserable conditions. Vedic literatures, they enjoin, therefore, that before the arrival of such miserable conditions, one should leave home and die without the knowledge of his family members. If a man leaves home and dies without his family's knowing, that is considered to be a glorious death. Kapila Muni, he reveals about our last moments in the 17th verse. He says, in this way, he comes under the clutches of death and lies down surrounded by lamenting friends and relatives. And although he wants to speak with them, he no longer can because he is under the control of time. We saw in the beginning, right? The control of the time. See, people may say that, oh, my family members love me so much. Why are you giving such a negative picture? To such ignorance, Srila Prabhupada gives another punch in his purport. He says, for formality's sake,
Prabhuji, you are not audible.
Muted, I think. Muted. I can't
Audio
hear.
now.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. You're not audible, Prabhu. Something wrong with that. Hare Krishna.
I think we have lost the network. We'll just wait for a couple of minutes until Prabhu is back.
Hare Krishna, you're able to hear me? Sorry, got disconnected.
Yes, Prabhu, we can hear you now.
Yes, I think it just got, internet got disconnected. Sorry about that. Hare Krishna. So see, in that pitiable condition, time man, he wants to speak, right? And instruct them of his desires. But because he's fully under the control of the time factor, no death, He cannot express himself. And that causes him inconceivable pain. See, he's already in a painful condition because of disease. His glands and throat are choked up with mucus, right? So he's already in a very difficult position. And when he's addressed by his relatives in that way, his grief increases. We all have to come to that stage one day. Prabhupada says in his purport, the pain a dying man experiences is inconceivable. We can only realize it when we actually experience it. So how do we avoid this pain or at least alleviate it? Prabhupada gives a solution. It's not a very, don't get frightened about this by this picture because Bhagavatam speaks the truth. Prabhupada says the only solution is by surrendering ourselves to the Lord and getting attached to chanting his holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, and studying Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. By that, we can drive away the fear of old age, disease, and death and leave this body peacefully. See, out of the 4 kinds of miseries, Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, birth, death, old age, and disease. The problems and pains of old age are very nicely explained in this chapter, 3rd Canto, 30th chapter. It is very important for us to meditate upon these instructions given by Krishna. See, my Guru Maharaj used to say, if you are a Grahastha, you should complete your family responsibilities and then take up Vanaprastha or Sannyasa. You should leave the house when the people will be asking, why are you leaving? Right? Otherwise, the day will come and they ask, when are you leaving? So the purport, Prabhupada explains, family attraction is so strong that even if one is neglected by family members in his old age, he cannot give up family affection. And he remains at home just like a dog. So in the Vedic way of life, one has to give up family love when he's strong enough. It is advised that before getting too weak and being baffled by the mental activities, and before becoming diseased, one should give up family life and engage oneself completely in the service of the Lord for the remaining days of his life. So therefore, in the Vedic scriptures, that as soon as one passes 50 years of age, he must give up family life and live alone in the forest. After preparing himself fully, he should become a sannyasi or distribute the knowledge of spiritual life to each and every home. Don't worry, don't go nowadays in Kali Yuga, not go to forest also. Sthane Sita, wherever you're staying, you can continue. But if you're in the spiritual activities, whatever package which Prabhupada has given, right from morning till night, so right from Mangalarti, if you go on doing it as it is, then you are very much in the spiritual world. So nothing to worry. People will not be, so your health will be better in the old ages. See, in case of women, it is mentioned in the Shastras that when she is a child, she should be protected by her father. If father is not there, she should be protected by her brother. After marriage, she should be protected by her husband. And during old age, she should be protected by her children. See, but gone are those days when children respected their parents, even if the parents were old and unmarried. Nowadays, even if the parents are healthy, the basic Vedic etiquettes of care and concern are becoming bankrupt. So even if the children are neglectful, the only shelter which will help us pass through all these material miseries is the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Krishna. So be it men or women, in our youth, we'll be running around, busy with our occupation. But as we start slowly settling our responsibilities and retire, then starts the testing time of how we spend the new phase of our life. Old age without Krishna consciousness is very miserable. Old age without Krishna consciousness is very miserable. If you are fortunate to learn about the process of devotional service right from the beginning of life, then even if our body does not cooperate with us, we'll be able to face the challenges of life very peacefully. But if we have not taken shelter of the Lord, then it is very difficult to pass the time. So knowing the glories of the lotus feet of the Lord, the demigods pray in Bhagavatam 3:5-39. They say, "O Lord, your lotus feet are like an umbrella for the surrendered souls, protecting them from all the miseries of material existence. All the sages under the shelter throw off all material miseries. We therefore offer a respectful obeisance unto your lotus feet." See, when we have an umbrella, right, it does not mean that it will never rain. Even if it rains, it will not touch us. So similarly, if we hold on to the safest shelter of umbrella or umbrella of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Krishna, then no material miseries can touch us. So by chanting the holy names, studying Bhagavad Gita, studying Bhagavatam, We will have a clear understanding that the family members are not the cause of our suffering. Please understand that. Family members are not the cause of our suffering. And neither their care or neglect can protect or cause harm to our physical, mental, or spiritual being. This we should understand. The process of bhakti is so potent that it makes our mind more mature and protects us from all the loose talks and anxieties. So let us start engaging our senses, right now in devotional service. Now means N-O-W capital, when they are in good condition itself. And surrender into the lotus feet of the Lord and lead a life free from all kinds of anxieties. See, when Krishna, in the form of time, Kala, desires to finish us, we can't live even for a moment more. So Kapil Muni has explained this old age very nicely, right? About this Kala. It's a very complex subject. See, what is said in the shloka in the, I think this 15th verse, right? See, as soon as you would have seen, it's the experience also that when Kala works on our body, this body becomes dirty because the cleaning agent in this body slowly stops working. And slowly the liver stops working, kidney will become weak, heart starts paining. See, all these are cleaning agents. And when cleaning reduces, the body, anyway it is dirty, then it starts becoming dirtier. And when the garbage starts accumulating, then besides disease, what else is there? This is what it is in old age. So we don't want to be old. We should have this in our mind. And we have to come out of it, or come out of this kala. How to come out? It is told in Bhagavatam. Day and night, nitya, you should be utilized. Every moment should be utilized. So you should invest in Krishna. So every moment you invest in Krishna, you will not become old. Every moment you invest in Krishna, you will not become old. And all the cleansing agents will also keep working, right? So all will work. And the day they are not there, you will pass peacefully. You will pass in sleep or somewhere there will be heart attack, whatever, like this. So like this, invalidity or dirtiness will not increase. So this thing we have to remember always. So this is the teaching of Bhagavad Dharma. So every moment, kshana. So we should recognize this kala. So the clever human being who recognizes kala, his mind remains absolutely straightforward. That's why in the Sanskrit, the language of Bhagavatam, this is called Arjavam, means simple life. Because that human being doesn't want to be entangled in anything else, right? We have the example of Jadabrata. See, knowingly he became dumb and deaf. Knowingly. He knew that my mind will go here and there, my mind will go here and there. So my Kal will finish me off. And Kal will finish me, right? That's what you think. So just like how Jadabrata was thinking, just like how I lost one birth in deer's life, because you were thinking about deer, right? I will lose many more births. So he understood this. So he never cared about what others thought about him or did to him. So it's completely arjavam, simple. See, other than Bhagavan's names, he had no other business. So as long as he lived, his prasadam was taken care of. Everything was arranged. And whichever way it was arranged, he managed. This is the way, method of defeating Kala. Very nice point. Huh? Everything was arranged for him and all was arranged. And whichever way it was arranged, he managed. So we should be organizing our life in such a way that we can lead the life under any circumstances. So this is the way of defeating Kala. By other ways and methods, we cannot defeat Kala. So we must pray to Krishna to keep us always attached to him, both when we are young as well as when we are old. So please, so we should say, please, may Lord save us from this situation. That is, either you don't become old, or if you become old, then come to the temple and engross yourself in the scriptures. So that is a perfection of old age and your experience. So when you come in one of the lectures, my Guruma used to say, he was pointing out the younger people who are sitting. These young ones will be helped by your own experience. He's telling them for the elderly people who can come and help them and give them the real knowledge. And she said that will be the best service to Srila Prabhupada and his representatives. He said, don't waste your time. As soon as possible, please create these things into your life, some or the other, to satisfy the Lord, satisfy the saints, satisfy the sages. And if you do that, that is the perfection of your life. Now, how to satisfy the Lord? very nicely described in Bhagavatam. You have to do three things, and immediately the Lord will be satisfied. Everything, solution is there in Bhagavatam. If you do this, how to satisfy the Lord, right? The question comes. If you do this three things, immediately the Lord, immediately will be satisfied. Very nice verse. That is 4:31-19. Daya sarva bhuteshu santushtya yena kenava sarvendriyupashantya cha tushyatya janardana. Ashu means immediately. If you want to satisfy the Lord immediately, then these three things you have to do. Dayaya sarva bhuteshu. Be merciful to all living entities. Not only human beings, but all living entities. Dayaya sarva bhuteshu, right? Merciful to all living entities. Santushya yena kenava. Satisfied in any condition of life. And sarva indriya upashantyacha. Control of the senses. You remember MSC. That is your post-graduation, MSC. M for merciful to all living entities. Dayaya sarva bhuteshu. Second line, satisfaction in any circumstances. Santushta yena kenava. And C, control of the senses. Sarva indriya upashantyacha. Then tushyati ashu janardana. Krishna beings Janardana, Krishna, Ashu, immediately will become satisfied. So this is the way to satisfy the Lord. So let's please come to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and create faith with the help of the scriptural evidence so that this is the perfection of our movement, Krishna conscious movement, of our own life and for the humanity at large, right? See, I'll share the some purpose we should read. It is very useful. Just a moment. At this purport of the 17th verse. See, translation, in this way, he comes under the clutches of death and lies down, surrounded by lamenting friends and relatives. And although he wants to speak with them, he no longer can because he's under the control of time. The purport Prabhu says, right? We just saw, oh my father, oh my friend, oh my husband, all these things, they come and speak to you. See, in the 18th purport, very nice purport to read. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that at the time of death, one will be absorbed in thoughts which he cultivated during his lifetime. It's very important. Read it. Hear carefully here. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that at the time of death, one will be absorbed in the thoughts which he cultivated during his lifetime. A person who had no other idea than to properly maintain his family members must have family affairs in his last thoughts. That is the natural sequence for a common man. The common man does not know the destiny of his life. He's simply busy in his flash of life, maintaining his family. So at the last stage, no one is satisfied with how he has improved the family economic condition. Everyone thinks that he could not provide sufficiently. Nobody is satisfied. Because of his deep family affection, no, he forgets his main duty of controlling the senses and improving his spiritual consciousness. Sometimes a dying man enters his family affairs to either his son or some relative saying, I am going, please look after the family. He does not know where he is going. But even at the time of death, he is anxious about how his family will be maintained. Sometimes it is seen that a dying man requests the physician to increase his life at least for a few years so that the family maintenance plan which he has begun can be completed. These are all material diseases of the condition. So he completely forgets his real engagement to become Krishna conscious and is always serious about planning to maintain his family, although he changes families one after another. Here. So in the 19th, he said, at death, he sees the messengers of Lord of Death come before him, their eyes full of wrath, and in great fear he passes stool and urine. Purport says, there are two kinds of transmigration of a living entity after passing away from the present body. One kind of transmigration is to go to the control of sinful activities, who is known as Yamaraja. Other is to go to the higher planets up to Vaikuntha. So here Lord Kapila describes how persons engaged in activities of sense gratification to maintain a family are treated by the messengers of Yamaraja, called Yamadutas. So at the time of death, the Yamadutas become the custodians of those persons who have strongly gratified their senses. They take charge of the dying man and take him to the planet where Yamaraj resides. So the conditions are there described in the following verses. I'll read the purport of this 20 and 21. See here, it's self-explanatory. See, every living entity is covered by a subtle and gross body. The subtle body is the covering of mind, ego, intelligence, and consciousness. It is said in the scriptures that the constables of Yamaraja cover the subtle body of the culprit and take him to the abode of Yamaraja to be punished in a way that he is able to tolerate. He does not die from this punishment, because if he died, then who would suffer the punishment? See how horrible. It is not the business of the constables of Yamaraj to put one to death. In fact, it is not possible to kill a living entity because actually he is eternal. He simply has to suffer the consequences of his activities of sense gratification. So the process of punishment is explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. See, formerly, the king's men would take a criminal in a boat in the middle of the river. They would dunk him by grasping a bunch of his hair and thrusting him completely underwater. And when he was almost suffocated, the king's constables would take him out of the water and allow him to breathe for some time, like this, no? You go inside, then suddenly he comes out. And then they would again dunk him in water to suffocate. So little bit, when he comes out for the little breathing, that he feels it is happiness. But all along is that. So this sort of punishment is inflicted upon the forgotten soul by Yamaraj. Again, in the following verses, it is described. 21st, this purport. It appears from this verse that while passing from this planet to the planet of Yamaraj, the culprit arrested by Yamaraja's constables meets many dogs, which bark and bite just to remind him of his criminal activities of sense gratification. It is said in Bhagavad Gita that one becomes almost blind and is bereft of all sense when he is infuriated by the desire for sense gratification. He forgets everything. Kamaistaistir ritagyanaha. One is bereft of all intelligence when he is too attracted by sense gratification. And he forgets that he has to suffer the consequences also. So here, the chance for recounting his activities of sense gratification is given by the dogs engaged by Yamaraj. When they're biting and all, you're remembering those. So while we will live in the gross body, such activities of sense gratification are encouraged, even by modern government regulations, right? See, in every state all over the world, such activities are encouraged by the government in the form of birth control. Women are supplied pills. They are allowed to go to a clinical laboratory to get assistance for abortions. This is going on as a result of sense gratification. Actually, sex life is meant for begetting a good child. But because people have no control over the senses, and there is no institution to train them to control the senses, the poor fellows fall victim to the criminal offenses of sense gratification, and they are punished after death, as it is described in these pages of Bhagavatam. See, in the 22nd verse, what is he says? Under the scorching sun, see, he's going from this planet to the Yamaraj. Under scorching sun, criminal has to pass through roads of hot sand with forest fires on both sides. He's whipped on the back by the constables because of his inability to walk. And he's afflicted by hunger and thirst. But unfortunately, there is no drinking water, no shelter, no place for rest on the road. In the 23rd verse says, while passing on that road to the abode of Yamaraj, he falls down in fatigue. Sometimes he becomes unconscious, but is forced to rise again. In this way, he is very quickly brought to the presence of Yamaraj. See, here he says, in the 24th, thus he has to pass 99,000 yojanas within 2 or 3 moments. And then he is at once engaged in the torturous punishment which he is destined to suffer. The purport Prabhu says, 1 yojana is calculated to be 8 miles. And he has to pass along a road which is therefore as much as 792,000 miles. Not 1 or 2 miles, 792,000 miles he has to pass along. Such a long distance is passed over within a few moments only. The subtle body is covered by the constables so that the living entity can pass such a long distance quickly. At the same time, tolerate the suffering. So this covering, although material, is of such fine elements that material scientists cannot discover what the coverings are made of. See, to pass the 792,000 miles within a few moments seems wonderful to the modern space travelers. They have so far traveled at a speed of 18,000 miles per hour. But here we see that a criminal passes 792,000 miles within a few seconds only. Although the process is not spiritual, but material. 25th translation and purport. He is placed in the midst of burning pieces of wood. See, what are the punishments? Actually, this is a trailer. More we can see in the 5th canto. He is placed in the midst of burning pieces of wood, and his limbs are set on fire. In some cases, he is made to eat his own flesh or have it eaten by others. From this verse, through the next 3 verses, the description of punishment will be narrated. The first description is that the criminal has to eat his own flesh, burning with fire, or allow others like himself who are present there to eat. In the last great war, people in concentration camps sometimes ate their own stool. So there is no wonder that in the Yamasadhana, the abode of Yamaraj, one who had a very enjoyable life, eating others' flesh, has to eat his own flesh. So meat eating is, see what happens. So in the 26th verse, he says, his entrails are pulled out by the hounds and vultures of hell, even though he is still alive to see it. And is subjected to torment by serpents, scorpions, gnats, and other creatures that bite him. 27. Next, his limbs are lopped off and torn asunder by elephants. He is hurled down from hilltops and is also held captive either in water or in a cave. The 28th, right? So verses 25 gives us a sample glimpse of various kinds of punishment living in it has to undergo if he leads a sinful life. See, in the 28th verse, men and women whose lives were built upon indulgence in illicit sex life are put into many kinds of miserable conditions in the hells known as Tamishra, Andha Tamishra, and Raurava. See, these are the hells. The purport Prabhu says, materialistic life is based on sex life. The existence of all the materialist people who are undergoing severe tribulation in the struggle for existence is based on sex. Therefore, in the Vedic civilization, sex life is allowed only in a restricted way. It is for the married couple and only for begetting children. But when sex life is indulged in for sense gratification illegally and illicitly, both the man and woman await severe punishment in this world or after their death. So in this world also they are punished by so many diseases, virulent diseases like syphilis and gonorrhea. And in the next life, as we see in the passage of Srimad Bhagavatam, they are put into different kinds of hellish conditions to suffer. Bhagavad Gita, first chapter, illicit sex life is also very much condemned. And it is said that one who produces children by illicit sex life is sent to hell. It is confirmed here in Bhagavatam that such offenders are put into hellish conditions of life in Tamishra, Andha Tamishra, and Raurava. So in the 29th verse, again, translation says, Lord Kapila continued, my dear mother, it is sometimes said that we experience hell or heaven on this planet. But hellish punishments are sometimes visible on this planet also. But the Prabhu says, sometimes unbelievers do not accept these statements of scriptures regarding hell. In Kali, this is what, no? They don't believe this. They disregard such authorized descriptions. So Lord Kapila therefore confirms them by saying that these hellish conditions are also visible on this planet. It is not that they are only on the planet where Yamaraj lives. On the planet of Yamaraj, sinful man is given chance to practice living in the hellish conditions. See, this is very another interesting thing. On the planet of Yamaraj, the sinful man is given the chance to practice living in hellish conditions, which he will have to endure in the next life. Then he is given a chance to take birth on another planet to continue his hellish life. For example, if a man is to punished to remain in hell and eat stool and urine, then first of all, he practices such habits on the planet of Yamaraj. Then he is given a particular type of body, that of a hog, so that he can eat stool and think that he is enjoying life. It is stated previously that any hellish condition, the conditioned soul thinks he is happy. Otherwise, it would not be possible for him to suffer hellish life. And in 30th verse, after leaving this body, the man who has maintained himself and his family members by sinful activities suffers a hellish life, and his relatives suffer also. See, the mistake of modern civilization is that man does not believe in the next life. But whether he believes or not, the next life is there. One has to suffer if one does not lead a responsible life in terms of the injunctions of authoritative scriptures like the Vedas and Puranas. Species lower than human beings are not responsible for their actions because they are made to act in a certain way. But in the developed life of human consciousness, if one is not responsible for his activities, then he's sure to get a hellish life as it is described. So he goes to the alone to the darkest regions of hell after quitting the present body. And the money acquired by envying other living entities is a passage money which he leaves in this world. See, a very interesting point we can still understand. So it is very important for us to understand our responsibilities and give up sinful activities so that we don't have to suffer in hell, right? Very instructive story given by Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj. He says, once there lived a drunkard in a village, okay. So seeing his condition, a sadhu very compassionately advised him, please give up drinking. If you drink, you will go to hell. So the drunkard replied, but Suren Babu is also drinking. So sadhu said, he will also get to hell. Then the drunkard started listing all his friends. What about Varun Babu, Arun Babu? Because they are also drinking. The sadhu said, all of them will go to hell. So pleased to hear the reply, the drunkard, he again inquired, what are all the other sins for which one will be sent to hell? So sadhu said, people who say lies, who cheat others, those who loot others, all those who are engaged in illicit sex, they're all destined to hell. Now the drunkard asked him, so what about the prostitute Padmini? Sadhu replied, she will surely be sent to hell. She and all prostitutes will be sentenced to hell. So hearing this, no, the drunkard became joyful. Oh, then that hell is really a jolly place to stay. So many of us have the same mindset as this drunkard. We think that if majority of people are doing the same mistake, then there is no harm in doing us. We also doing the mistake. But that is not the case. Intelligent people learn from others' mistakes. But foolish people think they are in a safe position as long as majority of people are doing the same mistake. Now, just because majority of people are doing the mistake, Krishna is not going to change his laws. Even if we are all going to be in hell with our friends and followers, each one of us will be fried in separate oil pans according to the level of mistake. See, as it is, our past sinful acts will take us to hell if we don't perform sincere devotional service in this life. So let us not be hell-bent, let us not be hell-bent to go to hell. Instead of adding to our sin list of sins, this is a list, right? We should try to make the best use of this human birth. I'll share again, sorry. So we just saw this, 28 to 9:30, we've already seen that, right? So the 30th verse says, after leaving this body, the man who maintained himself and his family members by sinful activity suffers a hellish life, and his relatives also suffer. See, everybody knows about Ratnakar. Who was Ratnakar? Later on, he became Valmiki. So before he became that, so Ratnakar, where his family members said, because Narada Muni asked, you're doing so much of dacoity and so many these things are there, you're getting sinful activities. So you will definitely go to hell. You'll be punished. So he was asking, see, I am doing this for my family. Although it is wrong, but at least to maintain my family, I'm doing this. So Narada Muni said, okay, then you're going to ask your whether they will also take a part of the sins which you will get. So Ratnakar, where his family members said that they would not take the share in his sinful actions. So Kapil Muni is making it clear that family members also have a share in the suffering. See, whatever good or bad one does, the reactions for it passes on to the family members as well. See, if a person borrows a lot of money but dies prematurely before returning the money to the lender, his family members becomes responsible to repay the debt. Similarly, the family members also partake the share in the sinful reactions of that person, whether they like it or not. So Prabhupada very nicely says in the purport of this 30th verse, species lower than human beings are not responsible for their actions because they are made to act in a certain way. But in the developed life of human consciousness, if one is not responsible for his activities, then he's sure to get a hellish life. For example, people eating meat cannot simply claim that since they were not engaged personally in cutting the animal, they are free from sin. The person who kills the animal, the person who sells it, person who buys it, person who cooks it, and the person who eats it, they're all partakers of sinful reaction of killing the animal. So one cannot be absolved himself of the sins, as he's not the deciding authority for the reactions of his good or bad deeds. See, when Parishit Maharaj put a dead snake around Shamika Rishi in the forest, and was returning to his palace, he began to sincerely repent for his mistake. That's what Bhagavatam 192 says. Due to my neglecting the injunctions of the Supreme Lord, I must certainly expect some difficulty to overcome me in the near future. So what does Parikshit Maharaj pray? He said, I now desire without reservation that the calamity come now. For in this way, I may be freed of the sinful action and not commit such an offense again. Now, Prabhupada, appreciating the responsible nature of Maharaj Parikshit, he says in the purport, he concluded that his insulting a powerful Brahmana was certainly to be punished by the laws of the Lord. And he was expecting something very difficult in the very near future. So Parikshit Maharaj therefore desired imminent calamity to fall on him and not on his family members. See, a man's personal misconduct affects all his family members. Therefore, Maharaj Parikshit desired calamity to fall on him alone. So by suffering personally, he would be restrained from future sins. And at the same time, the sin which he had committed would be counteracted so that his descendants would not suffer. That is the way of a responsible devotee, how he thinks. So the family members of a devotee also share the effects of a devotee's service to the Lord. This is the positive point. Family members of a devotee, they also share the effects of a devotee's service to the Lord. If one Maharaj Prahlad, he saved his demonic father by his personal devotional service. So a devotee son in the family is the greatest boon or blessing for the Lord. So that's why we should give this knowledge to our children, to the next generation. So even if we are not able to guide our family members to good destination, we should at least not be the cause for suffering either in this life or the next. See, chanting of the holy names of the Lord is recommended as means of self-realization by all bona fide acharyas. So this process is applicable for all ages. See, especially in the age of Kali, it is very powerful because no other means of self-realization is as effective as chanting. See, there's one very nice in the Rig Veda. It says, "O Lord, designated by syllable Om, your self-manifest name is the eternal form of consciousness. O Vishnu, even if my knowledge about the glories of reciting this name is incomplete, still by reciting it, I will achieve perfect knowledge." So three things about the holy names. That is, one is the name is completely spiritual. Two, one can chant even if it does not understand the glories of the Lord. Three, by chanting it, one can achieve perfect knowledge, which is how love of God it. So all these points were demonstrated by Prabhupada in his life. See, Prabhupada, when he went to the Western world to preach the message of Godhead, he had only 40 Indian rupees with him, which is not even enough for an hour's expenditure in America. He was also physically weak after suffering 2 heart attacks and also weak due to old age. And America was totally new place for him in terms of culture, weather, right? So materially he had nothing, but he had one great wealth, which is unflinching faith in the holy name of Krishna. He himself states in the poem, Markine Bhagavata Dharma. He says, out of humility, he expressed how he was unqualified in all respects as bhakti, right? He said, I have no devotion, nor do I have any knowledge, but I have strong faith in the holy name of Krishna. So with this single wealth, Prabhupada was able to elevate people from various backgrounds to the highest platform of love of Godhead. So he proved the chanting of the holy name is universally applicable, irrespective of mental qualification. So Bhagavatam 3:33:7 states that any degraded person who chants the holy name of the Lord is considered most exalted as for, right? He says, oh, how glorious are they whose tongues are chanting your holy name. Even if born in the families of dog eaters, such persons are worshipable. Persons who chant the holy name of your Lordship must have executed all kinds of austerities and fire sacrifices and achieved all the good manners of the Aryans. And another important point he says, Prabhupada says in the translation, to be chanting the holy name of your Lordship, they must have bathed at holy places of pilgrimage, studied the Vedas, and fulfilled everything required. Prabhupada says in the purport, one does not even have to chant the holy name. See, Prabhupada says, one does not even have to chant the holy name and understand the whole procedure. Namely, the offensive stage, offenseless stage, pure stage. If the holy name is sounded on the tip of the tongue, that is also sufficient. So the Nama, singular number, one name, Krishna or Rama, is sufficient. It's not that one has to chant all the holy names of the Lord also. So the Lord has innumerable names, and one can fix his mind on any name of the Lord, and it will avoid all perfection. The name of Rama is one among such names, and his glories are mentioned in the scriptures, and chanted by many devotees, right? So we saw how Ratnakar also asked his family members about sharing his sinful activities. I will close after this in another 5 minutes. I'm taking a longer time, sorry about that. See, his parents, Ratnakar's parents denied to accept it. So he asked his wife also the same question. So once he entered the kitchen, his wife received him eagerly and was happy to see a package in his hands full of jewels. So she was astonished and she says, oh, all these jewels and dresses are meant for men. But this Nagaratna is good and I will wear myself and use it. We will sell the other jewels and use the money. Now Ratnakar asked his wife, that's fine. Every day I risk my life in hunting and robbery and work in rain and cold to get you food. I get a lot of bashing while robbing jewels. All jewels you only use. So you will also take a share in the sins I incur in my activities also, right? This was the question he asked. The wife replied, honey, in this lifetime I loved you and married you. From that time onwards, I have dedicated myself for your pleasure without personal consideration. I decorate myself with nice clothing and jewels only to please you and attract you. I really do not bother how you earn them, whether by a legitimate means or robbery. Your duty is to earn for us. My duty is to cook food for all of us with the money you bring. So all sinful elections belong to you only. I will get the punya for cooking and feeding all of you. In this life, we are husband and wife. Next life, we don't know what will happen. Now, Ratnakar was completely devastated. So he just went out of the house without eating anything. At that time, his son came, hugged him, and to him, Ratnakar asked, for you only I am hunting and robbing daily. Will you take share of my sinful activities? Son replied, I agree, you are taking risk only for us. Now, if you are caught by soldiers, will they imprison you or any of us? He replied, they will arrest only me. Then son said, by extending the same logic, you only are accountable for all sinful actions, not me. Now Ratnakar realized, everyone wants to share the results of my earning and want to enjoy them, but no one wants to take share in my sinful reactions. So he was frustrated and came to his senses. That's why in the 33rd verse, therefore a person who is very eager to maintain his family and kinsmen simply by black methods certainly goes to the darkest region of hell, which is known as Andhata Mishra. So Prabhupada mentions in the commentary, 3 words in this verse are very significant. Kevalena means only by black methods. Adharmena means unrighteous or religious. And Kutumba Bharana means family maintenance. So maintaining one's family is certainly the duty of a householder. But one should be eager to earn his livelihood by the prescribed method as stated in the scriptures. One should work honestly according to his qualification. He should not earn his livelihood unfairly by means for which he is not qualified. Otherwise, if one maintains family by prescribed methods and honest means, there is no objection to one's being a family man. My Guru Maharaj said, if you work honestly and earn money and be satisfied with that earning, that satisfaction will protect you throughout. Honest earning is never condemned in Vedic literature. So Ratnakar decided to end his material life once and for all and seek out the higher purpose of life. And therefore he went back to Narada Muni. And he is the one who became Valmiki. And then Ramayan's stories is very... Finally, I'll just read out the last verse of this chapter. That is 34th verse. So it says, having gone through all the miserable hellish conditions and having passed in a regular order through the lowest forms of animal life prior to human birth, having thus been purged of his sins, one is reborn again as a human being on this earth. So the purport is very wonderful to understand. Please hear very carefully. Just as a prisoner who has undergone troublesome prison life is set free again, the person who has always engaged in impious and mischievous activities is put into hellish conditions. And when he has undergone different hellish lives, namely those of lower animals like cats, dogs, hogs, by the gradual process of evolution, he again comes back as a human being. See, 84 lakhs we would have gone through, each one, at least one round we would have gone. Then we have come to the human life. How fortunate, right? So in Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that even though a person engaged in the practice of yoga system may not finish perfectly and may fall down for some reason or other, his next life as a human being is guaranteed. So it is stated in that such a person who has fallen from the path of yoga practice, this yoga means bhakti yoga, is given a chance in his next life to take birth in a very rich family or in a very pious family. It is interpreted that rich family refers to a big mercantile family because generally people who engage in trades and mercantile business are very rich. So one who engaged in the process of self-realization or connecting with the Supreme Master Truth, but fell short, is allowed to take birth in such a rich family or in the family of pious Brahmanas. Either way, he is guaranteed to appear in human society in his next life. It can be concluded that if someone is not willing to enter into hellish life, we don't want to go, right? After we seeing all these things, it can be concluded that if someone is not willing to enter into hellish life, as in Tamishra or Anda Tamishra, then he must take to the process of Krishna consciousness. Very important. He must take to the process of Krishna consciousness, which is a first-class yoga system, because even if one is unable to attain complete Krishna consciousness in this life, he is guaranteed at least to take his next birth in a human family. He cannot be sent into hellish condition. Krishna consciousness is the purest life, and it protects all human beings from gliding down to hell to take birth in a family of dogs or hawks. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Shri Prabhupada ki Nitai Gaur Premaderi Hari Bol. Thank you very much, Prabhu Mataji, for giving me this opportunity to glorify the Lord. Hare Krishna. If you have any questions or anything, please go ahead. Hare Krishna. Sorry for taking a few extra minutes because this topic was it's so powerful. It's very, the truth is basic. These are the truth, especially the old age, the time factor, and what all happens in the health. But how we can go? Prabhupada gives a solution, the last purport. You have to just be in Krishna conscious. So you don't have to go through all those difficulties. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, what was the verse number of the Bhagavatam?
This is actually this chapter, 3rd canto, 30th chapter. This is the last verse, 34th verse.
Okay, Prabhuji.
You have to go through the whole chapter. You go through Mataji.
3.30. 3.30.
Yes, 3.3. 3rd canto, 30th chapter, and all the verses. 34th verses are there.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Wonderful class, Prabhuji.
Thank you. I hope I did not make a frightening this thing. No,
Thank you, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam.
Yes.
Prabhuji,
Hare Krishna.
I needed to ask, can I just request you? Prabhu, in many of the Marwadi houses, we see that, the husband and the children eat non-veg and the women don't. But they're sometimes forced to cook it, touch it. So even there, they are incur sin, Prabhu?
Yes. Yes, Mataji.
Okay.
But as long as you are in Krishna consciousness, it will not touch you. It is same like if you take the shelter of the Lord, it will not, just like the rain is there, if you open the umbrella, you've taken the shelter of the umbrella. So that rain will not affect you. Because you've taken the shelter of the umbrella. So same way the shelter of Krishna, if you have taken, chanting his names and all, even the other thing around you, all these things happen, it will not affect you. You believe it. That Krishna will take care.
Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna,
you.
Prabhuji.
Yes,
Dandavat
Mataji.
pranam.
Prabhuji, as I told you, I have a health issue which I'm going through. I am a vegetarian now. Previously, I used to have non-vegetarian, but long back I have stopped it. But now the supplements that I take are of animal origin, Prabhuji. I am supposed to take that.
No, see, Mataji, at least see, unless you have a good health, you will not be able to do your devotional activities as well, right? So
Yes, Prabhuji.
sometimes you need to have, especially in case of emergency and all this, we have to take the allopathic medicines. So it's not, now, as far as possible, Ayurvedic, these are all best. But sometimes it so happens, it doesn't, means it's not so, because we are in the Kali Yuga, right? So
Yes, Prabhuji.
all the sins, whatever karma, sinful thing we have been knowingly, unknowingly we might have done, that affects anyway, right? So for that punishment is there. So, but we have come to the conclusion, at least we are now realized Krishna consciousness is the best. So we are taken to this process. So Krishna will take care. But these things, certain things we have to have. It doesn't matter. It's okay. You don't
Thank
be
you,
worried
Prabhu.
about that, because now at least you're coming to Krishna consciousness. Suppose you're not taking that medicine, you will not be able to chant, you will not become to program. So your
Yes,
main
Prabhuji.
purpose, that is the glory, that is the ultimate goal.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you very much for the very
Thank
excellent
you.
class.
Thank you, Mother Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Dhanvat Pranam, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dandat Pranam Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna, Dandavat Pranam,
Thank
Prabhuji.
you very much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you very, very, very much, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Thank you, man. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Sri Hari Prabhu, for
Thank
this
you so
opportunity.
much.
Glory to Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. A very excellent class. Thank you so much. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you, Prabhu. It's all Gurudev's mercy. All Allah, blessings of Acharyas. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Guruji. Nice class.
Hare Krishna.